All Marvel human beings are a little bit more super than humans in the real world. In Marvel's universe, humans aren't exactly the same as humans in our world. Millions of years ago, the Celestials tampered with early human DNA, planting the potential for superhuman evolution inside the species. Because of this, Earth in Marvel isn't just a regular planet, it's a long-term celestial experiment. Every single human has a slightly altered, enhanced genetic potential built into them from the beginning, even if most people never activate it. This is one of the biggest reasons powers in Marvel can happen so easily. A random lab accident, a gamma explosion, cosmic radiation, or even magical exposure can turn a normal person into a superhuman instead of instantly killing them like it would in real life. The science of Marvel is wild, because the biology of Marvel is also wild. Humans there are literally engineered to unlock powers when triggered by extreme events. This celestial interference is also why mutants exist. That same genetic modification created the foundation for mutant genes. Over generations, it eventually evolved into the X gene, giving birth to a new class of superpowered humans like Cyclops, Magneto, Jean Grey, Storm, and Wolverine. Mutants aren't random freak accidents. They are the natural, evolutionary next step that the Celestials set in motion from the start. So when fans wonder why Earth 616 is always the center of reality-shaking cosmic events, the reason is simple. The Celestials designed it that way. Marvel humans were always meant for something bigger, and the potential for superpowers is literally built into their DNA by cosmic gods. The Punisher pretends to be a young girl online to lure predators to meeting spots so he can abduct or kill them. The Punisher has done some extremely dark things in Marvel Comics, and one of the most disturbing is how he goes after certain criminals online. Frank Castle has been shown pretending to be a young girl on the internet, not for jokes or manipulation, but to bait and expose predators who try to target minors. He uses fake accounts, fake conversations, and fake identities to pull them in, playing along until they agree to meet in person. When these predators show up thinking they are going to meet a child, they instead run into Frank Castle himself, and Punisher doesn't arrest them or call the police. He deals with them his own way. Frank believes that certain types of criminals don't deserve second chances, so he handles them personally with lethal force. This is not a one-time joke or a one-off gag, it's something Frank has done more than once in different storylines, showing how far he is willing to go in order to punish people he considers the absolute worst of society. And it fits with his moral code. He does whatever it takes to eliminate threats permanently, even if the method is morally extreme. This also shows the sharp contrast between Punisher and most other Marvel heroes, Spider-Man, Daredevil, Cap. They would never cross that line. But Frank doesn't believe in rehabilitation, trials, or letting anyone slip through the legal system. In his mind, tricking predators online and hunting them down is justified because he thinks no punishment from the law would ever be enough for them. Marvel Comics and DC Comics exist in Earth 616, and Captain America used to be a comic book artist. In Earth 616, Marvel literally publishes comic books based on real superheroes who actually live in their world. Characters like Spider-Man, the X-Men, and others have seen Marvel comics about themselves on shelves. Sometimes these comics exaggerate things, sometimes they are accurate, and sometimes they are straight up propaganda, depending on who wrote them. But the important part is, in the Marvel universe, Marvel is not just a fictional meta joke, it's a real business that prints comics based on the heroes that exist in that reality. Another surprising detail is that Captain America himself used to work as a comic book artist. Steve didn't always have money or direction, especially during times where he wasn't active as Captain America. So in different eras of Marvel canon, he actually got hired as a comic artist and illustrator. The funny twist is he has drawn Captain America comics from inside the same universe he is from. DC Comics is also real inside Marvel canon. The company exists the same way it exists for us, as a publisher of superhero comics. Marvel characters have been shown reading DC Comics before and referencing fictional characters from their books. So inside Marvel's world, DC heroes like Batman and Superman are not real people, but fictional characters the same way they are in our world. And this creates a weird but fun layered reality. Sabretooth beats Wolverine every year. Sabretooth and Wolverine have one of the most brutal rivalries in all of Marvel Comics, and one of the darkest parts of that rivalry is a twisted tradition Sabretooth used to follow. In older stories, Sabretooth would track Wolverine down every year on his birthday, specifically just to beat him, humiliate him, and remind him that he was weaker. This wasn't just about winning a fight, it was psychological torture meant to break Logan on an emotional level. These yearly attacks became part of Wolverine's trauma. His birthday wasn't something he looked forward to, it was something he dreaded because he knew Sabretooth might suddenly suddenly appear and put him through hell again. Sabretooth didn't do this to kill him. He did it because hurting Logan mentally was more satisfying for him than ending his life. He enjoyed watching Wolverine fail, panic, and suffer. Even though modern, Marvel stories have changed and evolved their dynamic, this tradition was a real part of their history and helped define why Logan hates and fears Sabretooth on a deeper level than most villains. It wasn't just one brutal fight. It was a repeated cycle that wore on Wolverine over many years. Wolverine went back in time with Spider-Man and taught early people how to brew alcohol. In one of Marvel's stranger time travel adventures, Wolverine and Spider-Man ended up getting thrown back into prehistoric times. While they were stuck there, they actually decided to make history a little more interesting. He taught early humans how to brew alcohol, basically introducing beer to ancient civilization way earlier than it should have existed. Logan did it casually, like it was just a normal skill to pass on. It wasn't done as a heroic culture contribution. It was more like his rough humor and why not attitude. To him, it was just something humans were going to invent eventually anyway, so he just helped them speed it up a bit. Spider-Man was obviously shocked because he realized how insane it was that Wolverine was literally altering human development in the past. This wasn't a small butterfly effect moment. This was a major historical influence made just because Wolverine felt like it. 616 Scarlet Spider, or Ben Reilly, holds the record for the highest amount of deaths. Ben Reilly, the Scarlet Spider, has died more times than almost any major Marvel character because of cloning, resurrection cycles, retcons, beyond storyline resets, and multiple return from the dead arcs. Ben's life became a loop of dying, coming back, dying again, and coming back again. Fans have counted well over 20 confirmed deaths, which is why people often say he holds the record. And what makes this even crazier is that Marvel actually acknowledged this inside the universe itself. Death, literally the embodiment of death, has commented on how absurdly often Ben dies. She treats it as a running cosmic joke, almost like even she is tired of seeing him show up again after being gone. Most characters in Marvel are lucky if they die once or twice. With Ben, it became part of his story identity, and his repeating cycle of death didn't just happen in one era either. It happened across Clone Saga, later Clone experiments, modern storylines, alternate forms, and especially the recent Beyond era that turned him into Shazam. Each time writers tried to reinvent him, it usually came with another death or collapse that reset his status. Santa Claus is the most powerful mutant ever, detected by Cerebro. As you know, Santa Claus actually exists inside Marvel Comics, and he isn't just a myth or a holiday joke. He is officially classified as a mutant. In one Marvel Holiday special issue, Cerebro scanned the world and detected Santa as the single most powerful mutant ever recorded on Earth. That means, at least in that specific canon moment, Santa ranked above Omega mutants like Jean Grey, Magneto, and Franklin Richards. It sounds like parody, but Marvel printed it as a real, in-universe fact. Marvel also used Santa in some strange and unexpected historical stories. One comic revealed that during World War II, Santa was kidnapped by Hitler. The idea wasn't played for complete comedy either. It was part of Marvel's older tradition of mixing real-world history with bizarre comic book twists. Later, Marvel took the weirdness even further by having Santa actually help save New York City from a clone of Adolf Hitler. Instead of delivering presents and cheer, Santa had to step in and stop something horrifying and dangerous from happening. It's one of those stories that sounds like random fanfiction, but it's printed Marvel canon that appeared in official holiday specials. So while most comic book readers think Santa in Marvel is just a silly seasonal cameo, the reality is that Marvel turned him into a cosmic level mutant who has been involved in insane plotlines. From being the strongest mutant Cerebro ever detected, to being kidnapped by Hitler, to saving New York from a Hitler clone, Santa Claus might be one of the strangest but most shockingly powerful characters Marvel ever included in their universe. Marvel copies DC. Marvel and DC have influenced each other for decades, and it's normal in comics that one company inspires, reacts to, or mirrors the other. Superheroes were not born in isolation, and both companies constantly respond to whatever is trending or selling well on the other side. So yes, Marvel has copied DC many times, just like DC has copied Marvel. It's part of the superhero arms race, where both companies fight to stay relevant, competitive, and fresh with ideas. For example, Marvel created Thanos after DC had Darkseid. The designers literally admitted he was inspired by Kirby's Cosmic Gods, and they went even more extreme with him. DC's Aquaman existed long before Marvel made Namor mainstream again. DC had Flash first, Marvel made Quicksilver later. DC had Shazam, Marvel created characters like Thor and Hercules that played in the same ancient power space. The industry constantly mirrors itself because audiences wanted similar archetypes but with different spins. It also happens with teams. Justice League existed first, then Marvel created the Avengers. Doom Patrol existed before the X-Men, and the creators have openly admitted Marvel likely saw the pattern and build their own twist on the outcast with strange powers concept. These aren't hidden secrets. These are well-known examples fans have talked about for decades, and comic historians treat them as normal part of superhero publication culture. Marvel changed the formula though. When Marvel copied something, they usually turned it into something darker, more flawed, more grounded, and more emotional. DC heroes were symbols and icons. Marvel heroes were people with trauma, chaos, identity struggles, science disasters, and broken personal lives. Marvel made their copies feel more real, which is why those characters ended up evolving beyond the initial inspiration and becoming iconic in their own right. Wolverine was supposed to be a mutated Wolverine, not a mutated human. When Wolverine was first created in the early 1970s, Marvel actually considered a very different origin for him. Before they settled on James being a mutant human, there was an early concept where Wolverine was literally going to be an actual Wolverine animal who had been mutated and evolved into a humanoid form by the High Evolutionary. This wasn't a rumor. This was a genuine idea inside the creative discussions before his origin was finalized. The direction would have made Wolverine more like a monstrous creature instead of a man with a traumatic past. He wouldn't have had a family, childhood, or emotional arcs tied to human history. He would have been closer to an animal that was artificially uplifted into something smarter and deadlier. That would have drastically changed his entire character, including his personality, relationships, and future stories. John Byrne openly talked about this concept years later, saying that he strongly pushed against it because he felt it was a bad idea. He didn't want Wolverine to be just a mutated beast. He believed the character needed a human identity with memories, pain, and depth for him to grow into a real icon. And that rejection led Marvel toward the version we know now, a broken, traumatized Canadian man transformed into a Weapon X experiment, not a mutated animal. Mystique Holmes. Mystique has always been one of Marvel's most mysterious characters, constantly changing identities across different eras and cultures, but recently Marvel actually pushed one of those identities to a shocking new level. In the Sins of Sinister storyline, they revealed on panel that Mystique was operating in Old London during the Sherlock Holmes era, and she wasn't just hiding there, she was literally acting as Holmes himself. This wasn't just a wink or an implication anymore. Marvel actually showed it happening. For years, fans noticed something strange. Mystique's long-term lover is Irene Adler, the same exact name as Sherlock Holmes' most famous love interest in literature. People speculated that maybe Holmes existed in Marvel, or maybe Adler inspired Holmes. But instead, Marvel flipped the concept and made it so Mystique was the real source of the Sherlock Holmes legend. The detective stories basically came from her undercover life, not from a real British man. This fits Mystique perfectly because she has lived for well over a century and moves through history like a shape-shifting ghost. She was there when the world had no X-Men, no mutants revealed, no superheroes. She lived among humans under different faces and used her intelligence, intuition, and manipulation skills to influence society long before superheroes were a thing. So in Marvel canon, Dracula is real, Frankenstein's monster is real, the Martians from War of the Worlds are real, Cthulhu-style elder horrors are real, but Sherlock Holmes, he was never a real detective there, because the detective that history remembers was secretly Mystique the entire time. The ooze that gave the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles their powers is the same ooze that gave Matt Murdock his powers. The Ninja Turtles were originally created as a dark parody of Daredevil's world, and that's why their origins line up so strangely close. In the original Mirage comics, the ooze that mutated the Turtles is implied to be the exact same radioactive substance that blinded young Matt Murdock and gave him his powers. They never officially state it word for word, but it is directly written and framed to be the same incident, same canister, same spell. It's one of those hidden comic connections that fans didn't imagine. It was done intentionally by the creators from the start. The parallels continue with their mentors. Daredevil was trained by Sick, a harsh, mysterious martial arts master who lives in the shadows and fights an ancient, hidden war. The Turtles were trained by Splinter, which is a direct parody reflection of Sick. Splinter exists because they were referencing and playing off Daredevil's mentor. It makes the two universes feel almost like mirror worlds, where one is slightly more serious and grounded, and the other is a wild, mutated version of it. Even their villains match up. Daredevil fights the hand, the Turtles fight the foot. It was subtle. The TMNT creators fully leaned into Daredevil's lore and remixed it into something weird, funny, and iconic on its own. And that's what made the Ooze connection such a loved piece of comic trivia, because it links two massive pop culture universes in a quiet, unofficial way. When Taskmaster copies something, he has to forget something else, like events, places, and people. Taskmaster has photographic reflexes, which means the moment he sees someone fight, move, or perform a skill, he can instantly learn it and replicate it almost perfectly. That's why he can fight like Daredevil, shoot like Hawkeye, and sword fight like Deadpool. His brain records abilities the same way most people store memories, it's just basic copying. But this power comes with a cost people don't realize. His brain does not have unlimited space, so the more combat styles and techniques he absorbs, the more regular memories he has to erase to make room for them. Every new skill he copies forces out personal memories automatically. It's like overwriting a hard drive. New files replace old ones without warning. Because of this, Taskmaster forgets real people who were once important to him. He forgets relationships, places he's been, even emotional connections. Every time he learns something new, something in his past disappears. Over time, he became almost a ghost of his own life, unable to keep any personal relationships because they simply don't stay in his mind long enough. And this turns his ability into a tragedy. On the outside, he looks like a selfish mercenary copying everyone to get paid, but on the inside, he's losing himself piece by piece every time he improves. Mystique is just as old as Wolverine. Mystique isn't just dangerous because she can change her shape. She's also extremely old. Marvel has shown that she has lived since at least the 19th century, long before the modern era of superheroes. Her shapeshifting doesn't just let her copy faces, it also prevents her body from aging normally, which lets her blend into every generation without ever being noticed as someone who's centuries old. She has lived through entire eras of history, switching identities as she needed. Wolverine is also from that same time period, being born in the late 1800s, before surviving through wars, trauma, Weapon X, and decades of hidden history. Because of this, Mystique and Wolverine are actually part of the same age tier in Marvel. Extremely old mutants who lived through the rise of modern civilization and watched the world transform over more than a century. They don't just know history, they lived in it. This explains why their stories cross paths so naturally and why they both have deep connections to the hidden corners of Marvel history. They weren't born in the age of heroes. They arrived in it after surviving lifetimes before it even began. Mystique isn't visually old because her power hides it, but she has existed for a very long time. So when people talk about extremely old mutants in Marvel, Wolverine isn't alone. Mystique is from that same forgotten age, making her just as ancient, experienced, and historically embedded in the Marvel universe as Logan himself.